For the past 3 decades, Wes Anderson has left a distinctive fingerprint in American comedy. With his penchant for artificial worlds, deadpan performances, literary devices, and snappy narration.
Course of that eventful evening. Shall I carry on?
But there's something else. These movies are funny to look at. Over the years, Anderson has experimented more and more with visual comedy, and none of this is more apparent than in Isle of Dogs. For the sake of brevity, we'll define visual comedy as humor that is mainly conveyed through images. You have to look at it to get it. For example, this is in direct contrast to verbal comedy, which is mainly conveyed through dialogue.
Yeah, is he dead?
He looks dead. I have a question. Are we eating him, or is this a rescue?
We don't know yet.
Nobody's eating the little pilot.
And when it comes to visual comedy, Isle of Dogs is Anderson's most experimental film yet. Wes Anderson is known for a particular style. We don't have time to go into all of it, so we'll paraphrase the great David Bordwell. First, he shoots planimetric frames. That's where the background is perpendicular to the camera, and the characters are usually placed as if they're in a class photo, or a mugshot. The effect is a bit like watching a stage play, or a diorama. As a result, Anderson's worlds have very visible geometry, and the characters move in straight lines, which is part of the humor. To get from one shot to the next, Anderson uses a technique that Bordwell calls compass point. Basically, the camera can cut 90 degrees, or 180. Straight in, or out. And of course, all of the above can be accomplished with a whip pan. On top of that, the camera can only move along one axis at a time, so it can dolly one way, but then it has to stop before changing direction. Now that we've established the rules of Anderson's camera, how does he use these parameters to his advantage?
Great.
Get ready to jump. Atari, I'm gonna drag you.
We'll jump into this scene. Yoko Ono is drinking at a bar. The camera then jumps backwards to reveal the bartender and a wide view of the room, which is used for Tracy's dramatic entrance. We then cut 180 degrees for this close-up. Once she starts speaking to Yoko Ono,
Tracy Walker, Megasaki Senior High.
the camera whips 90 degrees. Anderson stages most of the scene in a planimetric two-shot. This allows him to keep our attention centered while using the edges of the frame to let objects exit and enter as needed. The great thing about this sequence is that every shot has a distinct purpose, and the staging allows Anderson to use the entire frame for comic effect.
Pull yourself together and act like a scientist!
But with such a well-defined style, the next question is, how can he build variation? Well, for one thing, he can subdivide the frame. He achieves this effect photographically using deep focus compositions. This shot allows us to see Rex's dialogue and the other dogs' reactions without cutting.
I don't think I can stomach any more of this garbage.
Exactly.
Same here.
Words out of my mouth.
This staging of figures is influenced by Akira Kurosawa's 1960s films. The foreground face plays beautifully against the background figures. Similarly, there are numerous shots where the bottom of frame is a wide, while the top is a close-up. The film also makes extensive use of monitors and TV screens within frame, which allows Anderson to play one area of the image against another. In Fantastic Mr. Fox, we saw an early experiment of this, when the heist from Bunce was shown only in security footage. Isle of Dogs has expanded on that, introducing entire action sequences that are depicted via security cam. And of course, there is the literal subdivision of frame, the split screen. The end result is yet another tool added to Anderson's arsenal, and a way for him to push his style within the restraints he's given himself. Now, he can stage elaborate gags, literally, side by side. The second major experiment of Isle of Dogs is in terms of artifice. All filmmaking is an illusion. And even before he worked in animation, Anderson was building artificial constructed worlds. But Fantastic Mr. Fox was a fulcrum point. There were ideas he had tried in live action that animation allowed him to explore even further. Because animation is not real, the audience has already suspended their disbelief further than they would in a live action film. Which means you can get away with things that make no logical sense. After he worked in animation, we can see Anderson pushing believability further in his live action work. By emphasizing the artifice, he can get away with humor that would not work in a more realistic film.
Constant traffic.
But it's a two-way street. In Isle of Dogs, Anderson has brought aspects of other mediums into stop motion. The film employs devices from theater, like dramatic lighting shifts and onstage background changes, and techniques from live-action filmmaking. Unlike other forms of animation, stop motion exists in the physical world, which means the lights, cameras, puppets, and sets are all real objects. The film even uses other types of animation. For instance, 2D is used to differentiate any moment on a screen.
He will be rescued promptly, returned to safety, and grounded for the duration of his childhood years.
By stacking all these different mediums on top of each other, Isle of Dogs moves further from realism and towards something else: abstraction. And abstraction helps him make things funnier, particularly with violence. In his earlier films, violence is often shown in handheld, shaky, slightly awkward framing. But Fantastic Mr. Fox reduced the violence to quick flashes. And you can see how that choice directly influenced his next live-action film. By Isle of Dogs, the violence became clouds of cotton balls and limbs. When the characters stopped fighting, they froze in place. A trend that was further expanded in The French Dispatch. By abstracting, Anderson is able to imply some pretty violent actions, but the humor comes from the images playing at right angles to the text of the scene. Which brings us to rhythm. Visual comedy is hard to describe in words. That's why we often draw the jokes on paper first.
Max, here to try it?
I'm sorry, did someone say my name?
Anderson had always storyboarded his films, until Fantastic Mr. Fox, when he started using animatics, which are storyboards timed out.
Franklin? You drank 3 yesterday, though.
All right, take 3.
Animatics opened him up to more ambitious visual humor because he could design the rhythm in advance. Notice the timing of the people passing through frame. With all of this in mind, let's take a look at the sushi poisoning sequence from Isle of Dogs. First, it's deliberately artificial. It is timed so elaborately and precisely that the rhythm itself becomes funny. Second, the actual violence is never shown. We only see an implication and the end result. Third, it brings in elements from another medium. The hotel operates like a theatrical set. When Watanabe appears, the lights change so we can see inside. Sequences like this are enjoyable in Anderson's work because we know they're not real. By taking this plot point and pushing it to such extreme artifice, he is disguising tragedy with humor. Visual comedy is one of our oldest genres and has always been a vehicle for filmmakers to express their anxieties and fears. Whether that was Charlie Chaplin and fascism, Jacques Tati and modernity, or Terry Gilliam and bureaucracy. With Isle of Dogs, Anderson is following in that tradition of exploring dark subject matter through comedy.
Upon his release from Megasaki General, Atari, who suffered the loss of his right kidney and...
Wes Anderson's films are about some pretty tragic things. There's family trauma, grief, emotional baggage, murder, war. But Isle of Dogs might be his darkest film yet. It's about a leader who targets a specific group, demonizes them, exiles them to a separate location, and then plans their demise. The only people willing to stop him are not ordinary folks who largely agree, but rather scientists, young protesters, and a lonely orphan. The press mostly looks on. What shocks the ordinary people into realizing what they've done is a demonstration of how much dogs mean to them by a child reciting a haiku. This is not funny at all. And yet the film looks very funny, which is arguably the point.